really pleased to have in the office with me, or in the studio with me here, Anne Weismann. She is the executive director of the Campaign for Accountability. CampaignForAccountability.org is the website. You can tweet Anne at accountable_org. Do I have it right?
I think so, yes.
Okay, Anne Weismann, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me about the Campaign for Accountability and what you're doing about our broken political system.
We're doing as much as we can, but it's pretty broken. We're a national organization, and we are really dedicated to accountability in government, which means a lot of things, I realize. But one of the things we try to do is hold public officials, be they at the state level or the federal level, hold them accountable for their actions. One of the things that we're looking at, and I was thrilled to be asked to join the lawsuit, is the whole issue of campaign finance, because I think there's no question that money in politics leads to corruption, at least the appearance of corruption.
Oh, I think it leads to real corruption. I mean, the main topic for the day that we've been talking about is the killing of these 5 police officers in Dallas, and the wounding of 7 others, and then the killing in the previous 2 days of two African Americans. And I would argue that an awful lot of that, I mean, the whole Nixon drug war, now the private prison business, now the let's arm the police, let's turn them into SWAT teams, let's turn them into hyper-military. Virtually none of that would have happened if it wasn't for the corrosive and corrupting influence of money in politics, in my opinion.
I think that's a very valid point. I don't know if I would go quite that far, but it almost doesn't matter, because the bottom line is it has a corrupting influence. In fact, I think there was a February 2016 Rasmussen report that said 61% of Americans believe that politicians are corrupted by money in politics. Yeah. So that's a pretty significant number of people. And the real problem we along with another group, Free Speech for People, and several members of Congress and several candidates for Congress filed a complaint yesterday with the Federal Election Commission. And the point, this is just the first step in what we know will be a very long haul. We're ultimately headed for the Supreme Court. And the goal here is to overturn a decision from the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit called Speech Now. And the reason that is such a bad decision that needs to be overturned is that is the decision that's responsible for super PACs, these political action committees, to be able to give unlimited funds in support of a candidate, to be able to accept unlimited funds.
On behalf of an individual candidate.
Yes. So, I mean, one thing that did survive a Supreme Court case called Buckley v. Vallejo is the idea that the government can legitimately regulate how much an individual gives directly to a candidate. The court said, we accept the proposition that in that context, money can corrupt or have a corrupting influence. And so limiting individual contributions to $5,000 is a rational way to approach that problem. But when it comes to super PACs, they reached this absurd, irrational result that basically said, well, there's not that same problem of corruption because super PACs aren't the candidates themselves. They're removed from the candidates. Well, we know everybody talks about this candidate's super PAC and that candidate's super PAC. There's no question. And so what you end up with is billionaires giving millions and millions of dollars to a super PAC that they know will be used to either support or oppose a specific candidate for Congress or the president.
And this is corruption.
This is corruption.
Basically on its face.
And it's ridiculous.
And it's corruption brought to you courtesy of our court system, not our legislative system. This is the amazing thing.
Yeah, super PACs were not created by statute. This is all a creation of courts.
Law made by courts.
Whether
it's Buckley, whether it's Santa Clara County, whether it's, but it's Citizens United.
On a basic level, it's just, if you said to the average American, well, you can only give $5,000 to a candidate, but you could give millions of dollars if you have it to a committee, a super PAC that's going to spend money on behalf of that candidate, that would make no sense.
Right. So you're suing at the Federal Election Commission.
Yes, we're suing a bunch of super PACs.
Is it some Democratic and some Republican?
Yes, it's a bipartisan group.
And you're suing them in the D.C. Circuit?
the first step, the necessary first step, is to file an FEC a complaint with the Federal Election Commission, because that's the agency that's charged with enforcing the campaign finance laws.
So then if they go along with you, it's great. If they don't go along with you, then it goes to the D.C. Circuit.
No, then it goes to the district court. This is why we have a long road ahead. And then the D.C. Circuit, and then on to the Supreme Court. Yes. I think it's quite likely that the Federal Election Commission won't do anything. They have 120 days. They're paralyzed. They have 120 days under the statute to act. So our expectation is that in 120 days, we'll be filing a complaint in district court. Right. And that'll set this whole process off.
So we're talking with Anne Weismann, the executive director of the Campaign for Accountability. Campaign for FOR, accountability.org is the website. Accountable_org is the Twitter account. @accountable_org. So, Anne, what can people who are watching or listening right now do to support this effort?
Well, you know, this is not the only thing going on to try to bring some kind of reform to our campaign finance system. There are efforts to get legislation. There are efforts to get a constitutional amendment. And I think if you as a citizen believe, as I think a majority do, that our political system is becoming corrupted by all this money, then I think you need to put pressure on your legislators. I mean, that's a route to go. And I think we saw in the presidential campaign so far that money in politics and its corrupting influence has had a big role. It's been a big issue. We need to keep that alive. Right. So I would encourage people to get engaged, to make, to write to your member of Congress and say that, you want them to support reform of our campaign finance system.
Is there any specific legislation going forward right now?
I'm not aware of any right now. I know there have been efforts, they die. I mean, getting any legislation through this Congress has been impossible. Something like this is certainly not going to fare very well. But I think, the pressure has to be kept on. I
mean, if we can't even get funding for fighting the Zika virus.
Exactly. I mean, and campaign finance where, people can say they don't like the system, but everybody's afraid to disarm. So, Yeah.
So this is why we need to go after this on a bipartisan, structural level, rather than saying, oh, Republicans evil because they take money from the Koch brothers.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm so thrilled, because our plaintiffs include Republicans and Republican candidates. And they were, one of them, Walter Jones, who's a member of Congress for 21 years. He's from North Carolina.
Conservative Republican.
Conservative. Well, I think he's probably out of step with his party in other ways, but he's thrilled to be part of this effort.
And Jeff Merkley, the Democratic senator from Oregon.
That's right.
Really good guy.
Ted Lieu, who's a new member of Congress from California, and he's talked about the fact that in his race, suddenly at the end of his campaign, these ads against him started popping up, and he had no idea where they came from. It turned out a super PAC had just gotten $200,000 to run some ads against.
Well, and this is the new strategy, by the way, is wait until 3 weeks out and then just pour millions of dollars on top of their heads, and they won't know what hit them, and they don't have time to respond.
That's exactly right.
And it's profoundly dysfunctional. So this is great. People can read all about it over at campaignforaccountability.org, I assume?
Yes, they can.
So Anne Weismann, the executive director of Campaign for Accountability. Can super PACs be stopped? We can do it, right?
We can do it. I believe we can. Okay. And I think a rational Supreme Court will agree with us.
Rational Supreme Court.
Well, that's right. That remains to be seen.
Occasionally, more often than not, but good on you. Thank you for the great.
Thank you for having me.
Campaignforaccountability.org is the website. Check it out. And we will be right back. We'll be back with your calls here on Ghost Friday.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.